Hey, you might have not noticed, but with the new battle pass coming, this Wednesday, next Wednesday, whenever, brings a new balance patch. This one brings much bigger changes to the table over the last balance patch, and instead of covering it in a battle pass gameplay video, why not cover it in a video of its own? Everyone cares about balance, of course. I mean, it's a competitive platform fighter. I'd be concerned if people didn't. I'll keep it short at the intro, and we'll start with the weapons, and I'll go in the order that they're shown on the site. The orb nerfs consist of lower damage on neutral light and down air, increased recover time on side light and nair, and decreased acceleration, or as I like to call it, steering, on nair. I don't think these changes will make orb absolutely bad, but I also don't entirely see why they did it. Now, I've always thought the weapon was in a mostly average spot. You don't see legend play rates for the weapon being extremely high, with the exception of Fate of Petra, because, you know, Scything Gauntlets. You can argue that some orb legends are S tier or whatever, but a majority of them really aren't. They have great potential, but aren't as free as some other legends. Guitars surprisingly got a buff, and I know for the next few weeks everyone's going to say it's super OP. Both Recovery and Dare have decreased time to hit, and Dare has increased threat coverage near the user at the start of the attack. Which, honestly, I think this one's pretty big. I'm not sure what it'll do 100% with true combos, but it'll definitely help with better stringing. Also, it's a bit obvious they would buff it. Season 6 is bringing 2 epic guitar skins. Everyone keeps saying it's OP. I don't know why, but they are. After the Sayer Nair nerfs, I feel like the weapon was fine, but the increased recover time on downlight's going to make it much more punishable, along with the decreased threat coverage. Sayer got a force nerf, making it harder to kill with it. Honestly, that's fine. I don't really care about that. That's not the biggest concern. And the angle is more horizontal, which is alright in my opinion. And recovery is much more punishable on miss. I think the only hammer legends you see in pro play are like Bodvar, Taros, and Thor, but no others come to mind. This one I understand why people are calling OP. Personally, I'm fine with the nerfs on it, but I feel like Axe is worse than a few other top weapons currently, and those top weapons hardly got touched this patch, if at all even. Sidelight has decreased stun, which might mess with true combos, but likely not since it's such a small difference. And Sayer got adjustments to hit windows and time to hit. These two attacks you can say are the most annoying ones on Axe and the best ones, so it's nice to see these got nerfed. Whether they impact the weapon as much as we think, we'll have to see. It hardly got touched. Again. The only nerf it got was to ground pound, and that was for increased recover time, decreased damage, and decreased threat coverage, which, honestly, it's ground pound. Those 3 things weren't the problem for ground pound in the first place. And ground pound isn't the lead problem to gauntlets either. I can see the weapon still being played massively in casual and competitive play after these nerfs. You think I can explain this? Wait, this is more simple than I thought, actually. A ton of attacks on Greatsword have a decreased time to hit, ranging from just 1 frame to 3. Even though it's only a few frames, this is going to be super huge for Greatsword, and to help it string grounded. Now, you also heard that neutral light downlight and side light downlight will be true, which if that is true, Greatsword could potentially be good again. The only thing that got hit on Sword was recovery, which honestly might mess with Nair recovery. That's my only guess though. The time to hit and recover time I miss, I don't think will be too big to make the attack horrible. Plus it drops all the time anyways, so I think Sword will still be low S tier. It's good to see some nerfs to Scythe, but these ones are a bit weird. Recovery and ground pound I feel like aren't the biggest problems with Scythe currently. They're good attacks, but don't contribute to the combo potential as greatly as some of its light attacks. Which it's not meant to entirely, but I don't think these 2 nerfs will change Scythe very much. And being honest, whatever will. Sidelight has increased stun. People argue that Sidelight Sayer is still jumpable, and this makes it unjumpable, but it already is unjumpable if you do the combo on stage. Going off stage, it becomes jumpable, which is why people make this assumption so often. Maybe the increased stun will change that, but it's a really small change, so we can't count on it. This is a weird one to cover with the weapons. Weapon throws have decreased damage and force scaling with how far you throw it from, and decreased stun. I'm really happy about this. Weapon throw combos I feel like are one of the cheesiest parts of Brawlhalla. They'll definitely still exist, but this will help it become less frequent. Going on to Legends, some changes were really good and some were questionable. Ada got a buff in Spear Insig and Spear Side Sig. Side Sig is understandable, but Spear Insig was already her best Sig. I don't know, Ada isn't broken at all, but I don't think this was the way to go with it. Hattori's Sword Down Sig always felt a bit weird to use. It's not extremely useful in many ways. So to see an adjustment to it along with decreased time to hit, I hope to see this become a bigger part of Hattori's sword kit, and less Insig spam too. Look, I'm not one to think Lucian is a great legend. His blaster game lacks extremely, and his stat spread is bad. Although, you can argue that he has a great guitar kit, along with Sigs. So, why the down Sig buff? Once again, one of his best Sigs, so it's strange to see a buff in this. I'm not complaining, I guess. Like Ada, Lucian isn't broken or anything, but it's just a weird change. So much nerfs. This one is one of the best parts about the patch. Even though it's just damage nerfs to most of his SIGs, it feels so good to have. I personally would have taken increased recover time on some SIGs or less force on a few, but we'll take what we can get. You better believe he'll still be S tier though. Petra next to Shang is one of the most played Gauntlet legends, and while she had less nerfs, I think they're a bit more impacting. Gauntlet side sig takes longer to come out and has more recover time on miss, and side sig on Orb also has increased recover time. Orb side sig was never the biggest concern to me, but I'm glad to see the side sig nerf. I still think we need desperate instinct nerfs to both their weapons. I'm surprised this one didn't get nerfed near her launch. It was arguably one of her best SIGs, and I still sort of think it is with how quickly it comes out, even if the force isn't that much, but this one was a good nerf. Not enough in my opinion. I'm glad they nerfed this best SIG, but it's not enough. It's painfully obvious Mordex is the best character, and while I don't think we'll ever get a change to that, we desperately need one. Why? Zol already has an attack, he kills perfectly fine, and you go and buff his SIGs? The point of Zol is to have him be a heavy hitter, but also be slow at the same time. Decreasing the recover time on his SIGs and buffing a force feels like too much. Even if Zol hasn't played all that much, he's still too good in my eyes. Looking at the new test features, we'll start off with the maps. The new tournament maps I'm a bit iffy on, but it definitely does solve some issues with some maps being there that just don't belong, and introducing some new ones. I don't like how they removed Mammoth Fortress from the queues. This map felt really smooth to play on for 1s and 2s, with how big it is and how there's only like one small moving platform. Miami Dome and Small Enigma staying I greatly dislike. Crystal Temple going is alright with me, and I just pray that Apocalypse is only in 1s. It's not meant to be a 2s map. I hope that eventually the friendly modes go back to having other maps because I love playing on maps like Small Fangwild or Mammoth Fortress. As for weapon spawns, it's good to have them be much closer to the ground. This change wasn't my biggest concern, but it's a nice quality of life thing to make weapon hogging less frequent. Although it'll definitely still exist, which is fine, but to a smaller extent. Throwing weapons bouncing less, I'm fine with as well. Weapon throws have been getting nerfed pretty heavily lately, and this adds on to it. Even though I abuse it quite a lot myself, I'm glad it got nerfed the way it did. The graduated wall slip came into the live game way quicker than I thought, and even though it feels a bit too quick, I've gotten used to it. And it greatly helps with wall campers, which in 2s especially, I notice way too often. In both modes though, it's a great addition to the game. The new dodge changes. I don't know, I'm gonna be as honest as possible, I really don't like them. I feel like touching the ground immediately and getting your dodge back basically instantly is just too frequent. I like the other dodge changes better mainly because it felt more rewarding to get a dodge read. Even if for some weapons it was way too OP, which in that case they just need to be nerfed to fit the dodge changes. But that's still kind of the point, isn't it? Get a dodge read and get rewarded with damage. Also, doing a chase dodge gives you your dodge back super quickly too? This I really hate, and I just pray that it doesn't make it to the live game. They basically buffed dodging and gave you more opportunities to dodge and play passive. Even though I kind of ended it on a bad note there, overall I think the changes are mostly good. The weapon changes are mostly alright with a few weird ones, and the same goes for legend changes. All the experimental test features going live is going to feel like a fresh breath of air for once. And what better way than with the Season 6 Battle Pass, right? Thanks for watching this patch analysis, and I'll be sure to see you all in the next one. Keep on brawling.